So let's go down to the time element. This is something that I think we could probably spend a bit of time on. And I think it's really important. I think it's something that in general people don't do well enough is making sure that everything that's written within a workout has a clear, defined work rest, right? And that can be the actual individual phase of the lift. It can be like the overall working time of the set. It can be intervals, high, low. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but just kind of going back to that, everything needs to have that context. So number one, think about the actual rep itself. So the length of each phase of the lift. So that's the tempo. So for example, so for example, at 3-1 X1 would be a 3 second lower, 1 second pause, exploding back up, and then resetting at the top, right? 2-0 XO would be just kind of like a standard kind of movement, like a good just kind of recommendation for if you're just like don't know what to prescribe, you just kind of want them doing like a normal rep because it's 2 seconds down, it's just sort of controlled lower, you're exploding right back up, new pause, and just like a reset at the top, right? So that's just kind of a good recommendation if you don't kind of know where you're athlete and you just kind of like want them to do a general good rep, right? So and then again, thinking about how long is that actually going to take them. So if I know I'm having them do say a 8 reps at a 3-1 X1, it's going to take them at least 5 or 6 seconds to get through that. And again, the idea there is if we think about 6 times 8, 48 seconds, that's a long time depending on what exercise that is, right? So again, if we're having them do 12 reps at like 4-1 X1 or something like that, that's going to be over a minute. So if we're having them do RDLs at that tempo, like their grip is going to be shot because that's like a really long time to hold on to a bar, right? And that's fine if we do that. We just need to kind of calculate that in your mind and be like, okay, how long is this actually going to take them, and know the athlete well enough where you're like, okay, that's going to take them this amount of time to recover from that, right? And be making sure that they can actually repeat that effort. All right. So, and then again, think about the overall work time. And that could be sets, but this could also get sloppy depending on what it is, right? Like if we're having them do a sled push, so we're just kind of probably have them mark like the overall time of that because it's not like we're counting like their steps or something like that, right? So just think about how long are they actually working and how like systemic and draining is that for them, right? So again, something like a sled push is going to be way more draining and they're going to need longer rest time than like a hamstring curl, right? And it comes down more to, again, the systemic fatigue versus local. All right. So again, another just like the good way to think about this in general is work to rest ratio. And again, I typically use that when I'm thinking more, again, systemic fatigue. So if I'm having them do like intervals on like an erg, I'll use that. If I'm having them run or do sprints, or again, like more like major lifts, like even like a kettlebell swing, a deadlift, clean snatches, any of the power lifts, that sort of thing. Right? That's when I really use those, and why I also try to think about extending that as long as I need to in order for them to be able to repeat that if that's what I want. All right. Time priority, work priority. In fitness language, that's like 4 time versus like AMRAP, right? Where you're like, for example, you're doing 4 time, you have a set amount of work, you're going through 30 reps of each of these things, and you're going through as quickly as you can, right? It's just a work priority. Whereas the time priority, you have a set amount of time and you're pushing as much work into that as you can, right? And that's no different than saying like a 10-second sprint on the air runner versus a 10-calorie sprint on the air runner, right? The one, really, it just comes down to if you're doing the work priority, you need to know the athlete better. So for example, if I have a new athlete, I'm probably going to give them a lot more sprint for 12 seconds because I don't know how long it's going to take them to do a 12-calorie sprint or something like that, right? So it's just something that, again, with the work priority, you need to know the athlete.